At this point, I'd like to start adding some lights to our environment. So first of all, I'd like to put some lights in the kitchen. Let's go to our perspective view here. So you can see here I've made a quad light and sort of pointed it towards coming out this door. Right? So the purpose of this light is to flood into this room and then kind of come out the doorway and then hit the wall behind our character right here. Now, this is sort of replicating what they would do on set. You know, the idea being that maybe you've got this table and there would be a chandelier above the table, but usually they wouldn't actually use the chandelier to do that lighting. They would put a light over here out of view to look like there's some light from behind this wall. Let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So here's the results of that light coming back. Now this is much noisier because we're not looking at the LPE here. I'm still curious about why that is. Maybe there's some kind of noise reduction happening on these channels, but I'm not really sure. But regardless, if we look at it, there's our dome light and there's our kitchen light. I've reserved light number 2 for the TV, which we'll talk about in a bit. So it backlights this door frame and then it hits the wall behind our characters here. Now the other light that I added in, which you can see here, is another kitchen light from the other side. And this one is different because this is actually a point light. So if you make an Arnold point light, you get a couple of different controls for the geometry here. But the important one is this radius. So it comes in with a radius of 0. But as soon as you add some radius to it, now it is an area light. It's essentially like a China ball or something like that that they would use on set. Let's go to our camera view for a second. You can see here I've actually got it intruding into the frame. And I usually don't do this. I was going to talk about this in a later chapter as well, but I usually don't like to have lights that you don't see casting light onto the ground. But in this case, I actually cheated a little bit. And the reason is that I wanted a specular highlight from this to show up on our reflective floor. So you can see from our render view of the other light, we get a little bit of a silhouette happening here, right? We've got our dark foreground characters, and then we've got a very bright kitchen background behind it. And I wanted that silhouette to continue down behind his legs. And so I'm going to use a specular highlight coming from the kitchen, casting down. So let's see what this looks like. Okay, that's come back, and let's step through our renders here. So this was where we started. Then we added our kitchen light on the right side. And now we've added a third light, which is our other kitchen light. And you can see here we were getting a specular highlight right behind his legs, which is giving a nice silhouette. I had the idea with this that our character walks in with the television turned off, and he's going to pick up the remote control and then turn it on. Now in the actual Napo short, the TV is actually on from the beginning and he just changes the channel. But I thought it might be fun to actually have the TV be off at the beginning and then turn on when he presses the button. So I'm designing this lighting for this room to have our characters be in more of a dark lit foreground with a brightly lit background. Now our dome light's pretty bright right now, and what I was going to do is actually give it a tint. So if you go here and maybe pick some sort of a blue color, here's a little tip. When you're picking a color, always pick it at the top, because when you pick it at the top, it should be keeping the luminance. You want the value to be 1. So in that case, I'll just choose a color here, sort of a bluish tone. And you want at least one of your channels, red, green, or blue, to be 1. That way you're keeping the luminance or intensity of your light. Anything below that, and now you're going to darken your light intensity. So let's hit OK. And of course, you could dial this in a live render. Let's go ahead and launch a live render. And this color that we're going to choose here is just temporary. What we're going to do is actually record this number for later. And I like to store that just in a text file or something like that. Because when we actually go to render these out, I'm going to put this back to white. But for now, let's just see what this looks like. Set this as our comparison. This is actually exactly the same. You know why it's exactly the same? Because since this is an HDRI Skydome light, the color is actually not going to be derived from the common parameters of the Arnold light shader. It's actually coming from the second shader. This is something that snagged me the first time as well. You actually need to multiply a color against your image. So what you want to do here is just right click and copy, and then we're going to left control click to get rid of that. And then we're going to right click on this little color swatch and hit paste. And now as soon as we do that, now we're in the dark. Maybe this color is a little bit saturated, so we can go here and desaturate it. Maybe something like this. There we go. Again, we're going to put this back to white when we do our final renders. Let's take a look at our individual light channels. So that's where we were before, and now we've tinted it to be a little bit darker and bluer. We'll go to our second light, the first kitchen light here, and then our second kitchen light. So there's one more light that we need to add, and that is the television.